Believe it or not, your organs can literally get younger, not with surgery or organ transplant, but actually reversing your organs' age. And this was discovered some 40 years ago, and there's a whole science behind it using peptide therapy or a specific type of peptides called bioregulators that might actually be able to turn back the clock and make your brain younger, your heart younger, your skin younger, your hormones younger. I mean, can you imagine as a man having double and triple the levels of testosterone? Or as a woman, you are able to fly through menopause, having more balanced levels of progesterone and estrogen and thyroid hormones without taking hormone replacement therapy, drugs, and other sorts of conventional medicine. Well, today I'm going to be talking about these advanced form of peptides called bioregulators, which are just now creeping into the United States, which I believe are the future of healing. Welcome to the Dr. Josh Axe Show. Now, before I jump in, this is one of the most controversial topics that I will cover, and this tends to get buried when I share things that help people heal naturally and that are not necessarily fully legalized yet. This is a gray area, and the platforms I speak on sometimes don't want you to see this video. Oftentimes, these sort of topics around this exact podcast get shadow banned. So if you want to make sure you get cutting edge episodes like this in the future, make sure you're subscribed. I know many of you are subscribed, but many of you aren't. So if you want to keep up with what's going on, the most advanced scientific breakthroughs in the world today, whether they're fully legalized or not, make sure to subscribe here to the show. It helps you keep seeing the truth rather than being silenced. All right, let's dive in here. What are bioregulators? Well, bioregulators are very small, naturally occurring protein snippets or types of peptides. They're technically ultra short chains of amino acids, also known as short peptides, that are between 2 and 4 peptides in length, and they act as genetic switches, turning on and off genes. Now, of course, we know this is important if you're familiar with breast cancer genes or even things like MTHFR. We have these genes in our body that can be turned on or off, and peptides tend to turn the wrong genes off and turn the right genes on if you have them in sufficient amounts. And recent medical evidence has shown that they may help restore heart function, brain health, liver function, your immune system, and so much more. In fact, the leading researchers of bioregulators, Dr. Kavinson, along with other scientists, have demonstrated that these peptides can extend the lifespan of mice by up to 40% in some studies. Now, the origin of bioregulators came with this Dr. Kavinson, and his research began as a secret project for the Soviet Union's military and government, which wanted to reverse premature aging caused by radiation exposure. And after decades of research, Kavinson developed a range of peptide-based pharmaceuticals and dietary supplements that have been introduced into clinical practice. So this is something that has started to grow in areas like Russia and Asia, and now it's making its way into the United States. And as you age, your organs don't just get slower, they can become dysfunctional. And your brain loses speed, your immune system starts to weaken, your digestion can become off, and your heart becomes less efficient. But you can actually turn back the biological clock by supplying your organs with these peptides, also known as bioregulators. And many of these peptides and bioregulators have started to be used by everything from the cosmonauts to Olympic athletes and professional athletes, but now it's making its way into anti-aging and functional medicine. And I myself have started using these with patients for improving sleep, hormone imbalances, supporting testosterone levels, supporting patients with hypothyroidism, helping people overcome chronic pain issues, chronic fatigue syndrome, a number of benefits we see around peptide therapy. And these specific peptides called bioregulators, and you can get some peptides and bioregulators in the injection form or even in capsules. And of course, also straight from real foods, especially organ meats, which I'll get into, is where you'll find many of these as well. Now, I do also want to mention why this happens to be a gray area with peptide therapy, because pharmaceutical companies are wanting to get their hands on things so they can make these things for pennies and charge you a lot of money. And unfortunately, that's the reality. I mean, the crazy part is these bioregulators are found naturally occurring in organs and glands, okay? But what we're able to do is take those compounds and do them in higher doses to where if somebody has, for instance, a weakened immune system, we can do these thymus gland peptides in higher doses, and it does tremendous things for boosting the immune system. Well, of course, pharmaceutical companies are spending all of this money on lawyers trying to create patents around certain peptides, so you have to pay a large amount of money for them. The other thing it does is they actually will have to go through some regulation. So if the pharmaceutical companies have their way, you wouldn't even have access to these peptides for another 10 plus years. And that's why it's such a gray area right now in peptides. Certain peptides aren't fully legalized, even though a lot of people, you can go to many functional medicine or cellular medicine clinics and you can get peptide therapy today. It is not fully legalized. Only reason being is pharmaceutical companies are trying to patent these drugs. Here's an example. Certain types of peptide therapy we know are more popular than ever, like semaglutide, GLP-1, like Ozempic and Mounjaro. And of course, those are mainstream. Why? Because pharmaceutical companies have their hands on them and are now making billions of dollars off of these types of peptides. But the reality is, again, these are more like supplements than they are medications. Again, they're peptides. You know, I obviously started a company many years ago where we were the number 1 or 2 selling brand of collagen peptides, right? Collagen's a peptide. Where's that coming from? It's coming from the ligaments and the tendons, not necessarily an organ per se. It really actually could be considered a type of organ if you consider your muscles and your connective tissue organs. But you're getting loads of peptides from that, right? So we consume peptides anytime you're drinking bone broth, anytime you're taking a collagen peptide supplement, you are getting peptides. And those are type of peptides that are very good for your ligaments, joints, and your connective tissue. But there are other peptides that are great for your thyroid hormones, that are great for your immune system, that are great for your brain. And what peptides tend to do is they help improve communication within your body. Now, I am grateful we have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in office because he is aware of this and he is fighting and trying to legalize peptides fully. And here is actually one of his only quotes where he is referencing peptides. And here's what he says on a post on X. He says, the FDA's war on public health is about to end. This includes its aggressive suppression of psychedelics, peptides, stem cells, raw milk, hyperbaric therapies, chelated compounds, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, vitamins, clean foods, sunshine, exercise, nutraceuticals, and anything else that advances human health and can't be patented by pharma or pharmaceutical companies. This was an exact quote by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And what RFK Jr. is talking about is obviously not conspiracy theory. This is just pharmaceutical companies are saying, hey, we see this being the next billion-dollar industry. We want our hands on it, and we want to control who gets it and be able to mark it up to make a lot of money. You know, we see Robert F. Kennedy Jr., as we talked about, he's been referencing peptide therapy and bioregulators. We see Joe Rogan. He had a nagging elbow issue with tendonitis, and he said it vanished within 2 weeks of using BPC 157. So we see Robert F. Kennedy Jr. using these. We see Joe Rogan using these. I've got numerous friends like, Ben Greenfield and Will Cole and many others that are using them themselves. Neuroscientist Andrew Huberman claimed 2 injections resolved his L5 spinal pain, a condition that normally takes months to heal. We've seen numerous athletes using this. One in particular had a major hamstring tear and recovered much, much faster than he should have because of using peptide therapy. So bioregulators and peptides, they don't replace hormones or directly provide your body with nutrients. Instead, they travel to specific organs, bind to the DNA in the nucleus, and turn on repair and regeneration genes. Okay. So for instance, I myself experienced this when I had a life-threatening infection. I was bedridden for a year, couldn't walk, and had so much inflammation, pain, and tissue damage because the infection around my L5 vertebra. In fact, the infection went from my disc into my full bone. The entire bone was infected, and an abscess around my spinal cord. And I had a lot of damage there. And I had a doctor tell me that I may be permanently disabled. I would likely be permanently disabled. I could die, and I would have chronic pain every day because the damage would be so bad, and they would likely have to fuse my spine because of the degeneration. Well, I got turned on to two things: stem cell therapy and peptide therapy. And I started doing a fairly high dosage of BPC-157, TB500, and GHKCU. This is a peptide blend. I was doing it subcutaneously daily. And after 6 weeks of doing it, I was blown away at my pain reduction. And the thing that was so amazing was, it's not like I had pain, it went away, and then it came back. No, I had pain, it went away, and just kept getting better. I mean, that's what was so amazing in terms of just the improvement I saw in a short period of time. And the reason that worked was these different types of peptides went into different organs in my body. They started turning things on, saying, we've got to take our healing and regeneration up a notch. Okay. And as you get older, your body isn't as good. It loses some of its capabilities of repairing and regenerating. I mean, the amazing thing is our bodies are continually healing and regenerating. I mean, every 7 years, almost 100% of your body is new. It's at least a 70%. Sometimes it's much higher. But for many of you, when you're regenerating, you're not regenerating very well in creating fully new, healthy, younger tissues. What peptides do is they improve the communication process, and they turn on these genes so you can fully heal. And you might notice this, right? If you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, you're like, man, when I was 18 years old, I would have an injury, and a week later I was back playing sports and I felt fine. And I didn't have this long-term, damage from it. Well, today you have something happen. It takes 2 weeks, 4 weeks. It's constant, your tendonitis, whatever it is. And what peptides do is they actually can help you fully regenerate and heal some of those tissues and help optimize their function. Now, they do many other things outside of just tissue regeneration, and I'm going to touch on a few of those things right now, but there are over 20 identified bioregulators, and each organ has its own, by the way. So the thymus gland has bioregulators, your thyroid, your testes, your ovaries, they have bioregulators, and they've been shown to restore circadian rhythms. In fact, one in particular, Epitalon, is great at this. Reverse aging of certain immune organs, improve brain function and memory, regenerate the liver and kidney tissues, normalize blood pressure and cholesterol, lengthen telomeres, strengthen mitochondrial function, and so much more. Think of peptide bioregulators as your body's original software. They're coded to reboot cellular function at the level of your DNA, helping you rebuild your body and promote healing. Now, again, I've referenced both of these things, peptides and then the shorter chain bioregulators. Peptides tend to be longer chains of amino acids that often act like hormones. They are signaling molecules that bind to receptors and trigger specific effects, like BPC-157 for the gut, and in tissue repair. That's actually, there's proof of this out of the International Journal of Molecular Science. So several medical journals have already proven the benefits of BPC-157 for tissue regeneration. Another peptide, CJC 1295 or ipamorelin, another one. These have been shown to help increase more human growth hormone. And then there's thymosin alpha 1 that comes from the thymus gland. That's been shown to boost immunity and tamp down autoimmune reactions and reduce inflammation. Again, what bioregulators are, they're much shorter, usually 2 to 4 amino acids long. By the way, you might be familiar with shorter peptides like creatine. Did you know that's a tripeptide? It's actually 3 different peptide, 3 amino acids connected together. So creatine is a type of peptide. It's a tripeptide, so it's glutathione. And so these are things we know scientifically that have major benefits. I mean, think about all the benefits of creatine and glutathione. Those are those shorter 3-stranded amino acids that are very similar to bioregulators. They turn genes on or off. They don't act like drugs. They restore normal function. By the way, here's what drugs do. They force your body to do something oftentimes it doesn't want to do. I'm going to force your blood pressure down. I'm going to force your cholesterol down, right? That's what drugs do. What bioregulators do, and peptides and vitamins and minerals, is they give your body what it needs in order to function at the highest level possible. They might increase communication. It might give you a building block. It might optimize a detoxification pathway. That's what peptides and vitamins and minerals do. Drugs force your body to do something. And so bioregulators, what they do in essence is restore normal function. Now, standard peptides work through cell surface receptors, whereas bioregulators cross the gut barrier, penetrate the blood-brain barrier, and enter the cell nuclei directly. So that's the big difference. So you're not going to have peptides because they're longer. They're not going to go through the blood-brain barrier and the gut barrier often cases. What bioregulators will do, because they're so small, is they will pass through and they actually enter into the cell in a lot of cases. The key difference is this: peptides stimulate, bioregulators normalize. Are you interested in functional nutrition tips to burn fat, reduce inflammation, improve your brain and energy levels, and heal naturally? Then I want to encourage you to listen to my friend Dr. Dave Jocker's podcast, the Functional Nutrition Podcast. This podcast is designed to help you with easy, actionable steps to improve your nutrition and lifestyle, understand your lab work, and address the root cause factors that may be driving up inflammation in your body. Now, I've been friends with Dr. David Jockers for 20 years, and he's truly a world expert in functional nutrition, cellular healing, and so much more. If you want to learn the best nutrition and natural healing tips, tune into the Dr. Jockers Functional Nutrition Podcast on Apple iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you can listen to podcasts worldwide. Peptides, or specifically bioregulators, follow an ancient Chinese medicine principle, and it's called this: like heals like. Organs and glands, when you consume them, help heal other organs and glands. Now, we also know this extends into Chinese medicine with certain foods. For instance, like supports like. When you look at a beet, you cut it open, it looks like it's bleeding. That has nitric oxide that supports the blood, right? Carrots look like your eyes. Celery looks like your bones. Reishi mushrooms look like your adrenal glands and kidneys. And so they support those organs. Walnut looks like a hemisphere of your brain. It supports the brain. Well, this is the principle bioregulators function in, is it's like supports like. If you take a bioregulator for the thyroid, it is going to improve your thyroid function. If you're taking a bioregulator for your liver, it's going to support your liver function. That is what happens, because what bioregulators are, when Dr. Cavinson was doing research, he said, okay, well, what are the peptides found in thymus gland or in the thyroid? Okay, I'm going to discover and look at those thyroid peptides. I'm going to study those peptides in the thyroid and create thyroid peptides that can be now taken as a supplement. And so I want to say this: if you want to get bioregulators and peptides in their most natural state, consume a lot more organs and glands. Like, one of the supplements I take regularly is not just liver, which I do a lot of liver, but I do organ and gland supplements a lot. I mean, that is your greatest natural source of bioregulators. As part of a natural cancer therapy or immunotherapy, when people had weakened immune systems, they would take thymus gland and also sometimes multiple other glands that support your immune system, like the spleen and other glandulars. When they were going to detox, of course, we know the original Gerson therapy had you juice a lot of vegetables and actually juice calf liver or eat raw beef liver. Okay. And so, but why? Because he was trying to support the liver and detoxification channels, and like supports like. So he had them eat a lot of liver, but there are specific peptides and bioregulators in those organs and glands that you can benefit from. But for many of you, you need a higher dosage of what you're going to get in a food to experience the greatest level of healing. And so you're just going to get a more concentrated dose, which is really what all supplements are, right? Here's an example. When you eat an orange might have 60 milligrams of vitamin C, okay? If you're taking 1,000 milligram dose, right, that's like eating, probably, close to 15 oranges. That's a lot of oranges, right? To get up to that dosage. So my point is it works like a supplement in that way. It's just a higher dosage and you're going to experience more of a difference. But on a day-to-day basis, I'm doing organs and glandulars. And then if I need some sort of a natural form of medicine, that's where I'm taking key bioregulators. And here are some of the most studied and promising organ-specific peptides and bioregulators you need to know about. First one here is called Thymalin. Okay, this comes from thymus gland. This regulates the immune system, slows aging, and reduces your risk of infections. It's used in cancer support and viral illnesses and recovery. And as I mentioned earlier, this Thymalin was sort of it's the main peptide, or one of the two main peptides in thymus gland, that's been used for a very long time for bolstering and strengthening the immune system of patients. And so Thymalin is one you want to know about, especially if you have a weakened immune system of any sort. Maybe it's cancer, maybe it's multiple food sensitivities and allergies, maybe just get sick with a cold and flu more easily than you should. You want to consider taking thymus gland or Thymalin as a bioregulator peptide. Also, even autoimmune disease it's used for as well today. Epitalon. This comes from the pineal gland. This resets your circadian rhythms, boosts melatonin production, increases antioxidant enzyme activity, and lengthens your telomeres. In studies, Epitalon increased telomere length by 33.3% compared to the control group. So again, this is the peptide that helps stimulate and regulate melatonin production so you can get into a deeper state of sleep at night. I've actually talked to several people who have said they have really been wowed. I was talking to a nurse practitioner recently who works at a functional medicine clinic. I was getting a vitamin IV with a friend of mine, Dr. Darshan Shah. And he was saying, yeah, I've used Epitalon and noticed a tremendous difference in my sleep by taking that bioregulator peptide. In fact, there was a recent case study that reported a remarkable reduction in a patient's biological age from 76 years old to 68 years old after 1 year of treatment that combined Epitalon, Cmax, and TPE with mesenchymal stem cell exosomes. And so again, think about this. You're getting 8 years younger biologically, how much better you'd feel, how much healthier your body is. And Epitalon was that key bioregulator used in that study. Now, a few others that you want to know. One is called Cortexin. Of course, Cortexin, part of the cortex of the brain. This supports memory, cognition, and neuroplasticity. It's used post-stroke and used for neurodegenerative disorders. So this is great post-stroke for supporting blood flow to the brain and helping the brain. Another one is called Ventfort. This is for the vascular system. It improves blood flow, oxygen delivery, and cardiovascular repair, and helps normalize blood pressure. So if you know anyone with high blood pressure, heart disease, or general inflammation of the cardiovascular system, Ventfort is an amazing peptide. Here's another one. It's called Livagen. It is the main peptide or a group of peptides that support liver health. This is a bioregulator, supports detoxification, bile flow, and liver regeneration in hepatitis or fatty liver patients. Now, this is good even if you don't have fatty liver or hepatitis, but if you have those conditions, you absolutely should find it and take it. But in addition, it's just great for liver detoxification. And then Glandokort. This is adrenal glands. This helps balance cortisol, improve stress resilience, and support energy metabolism, and great for mitochondrial health. And then Vladoxin. This is for the spleen. This is a spleen bioregulator. Helps with autoimmunity, lymphocyte production, and supporting red blood cell formation. And I want to go just through a few others, and you'll just see this, is that for every organ, for the most part, there is a bioregulator, a short chain peptide that makes sure that that organ functions well. So for the adrenal gland, you have adrenalagen. Okay. For the bones and tendons, you have collagen peptides. Of course, you're already familiar with those. For the brain, there are many peptides and bioregulators like pinealin, Cmax, C-link, and cerebrosilin. Okay. So there are many for the brain. Colostrum, by the way, as a food, deer antler, there's a lot of foods, by the way. If you want to know foods that are high, organs are the highest, but along with organs, colostrum has peptides, deer antler has peptides, Eggshells have peptides. Spirulina has peptides. Back to the organs here. Your heart, for your heart, you can take a peptide called cardiolipin. That is great for heart health. Kidneys, there's Kidneyogen. Liver, Livagen, as we talked about. There's also glutathione peptides. Ovaries, Ovagen. Also for your pineal gland, there's Epitalon and pinealin. These are really great, as I mentioned, for circadian rhythms, anti-aging, sleep enhancement. And of course, the stomach and duodenum, you're familiar with this one already, body protective compound, which is what BPC stands for BPC 157. And then there's also bioregulators like testosterone for the testes. We talked about thymosin alpha 1, Thymalin for the thymus gland. Your bone marrow and thymus gland, there's actually a bioregulator that sort of combines multiple peptides together called Stemogen. And then your thyroid gland, Thyrogen. Okay, so there's thyroid-specific peptides that support those organs and functioning properly. And so if you are struggling with any condition that is specific to an organ, know that even if you don't have access now, in the very near future, you're going to start having access to these bioregulators that are going to support organ function. And listen, here's what I'm working on currently behind the scenes. I am working on some compounds and things that are going to combine, that are going to have bioregulators and peptides in a highly absorbable form. So this is something I'm incredibly excited about. And I think for most people, most people don't want to run out and take a medication. And even though it's not quite a medication, it's still not natural. A lot of these, hormone replacement therapy, if you could avoid it, you want to, right? And listen, I do think there's a time and a place for HRT, okay? But it shouldn't be the first thing you do. If you are having hormonal issues, low testosterone for men, as an example, or perimenopausal, menopausal symptoms in women, the first thing you should do is go and change your diet, use herbs, and use peptides in order to support that organ functioning. And then if you do everything you can there and lifestyle changes and your hormones are still off, hey, then there's a time to get on a lower dose of something like HRT, but it really should not be the first thing you do, because exogenously, when you take it from the outside like that, a hormone, it's different with food and peptides. But when you take a hormone exogenously, your body stops producing it on its own. So you're not maxing out your body's own ability to make it, which is why, like, if a male has low testosterone, what I do is I have them work on deeper sleep, have them do a lot of foods that support testosterone production, like Brazil nuts and walnuts and a lot of red meat. I have them take organs and glandulars. I get them on the right levels of zinc and vitamin D. I'll have them take herbs like Panax ginseng and maybe deer antler, and then get on the right peptides and bioregulators. And then lift weights. And I found with most men, because listen, here's the thing. If you're trying to find the shortcut and you're saying to yourself, I'm not going to work out, I'm not going to change my diet. Okay, you can go and take the hormone replacement therapy, but the reality is you still have disease brewing in your body. And you think it's going to promote longevity by taking this hormone replacement therapy. There are other things that are at play that are causing you to be ill in other areas of your body. So my point is, when you change your lifestyle, not only is your hormones going to come back into balance, your entire body is going to get healthier as a result of it. And when you do it the more natural way, you'll feel better. You'll actually be stronger. And I've worked with so many men on getting testosterone levels, those normal levels, and they've seen amazing results without taking testosterone. Not to say that they might not do a lower dose when they get, later on in their years and need to, but honestly, it's sort of like the icing on the cake because they've already done all these other things and they're aging so well. And that's the philosophy and the mindset all of us should have. Now, back to these bioregulators, these regenerative compounds can help you turn back your biological clock. They can help heal your organs. And these are compounds your body recognizes because they're found in your own organs and glands. And if you eat the organs and glands of animals. But today, they are being heavily regulated and even banned, some of them. And if you want to continue to learn more about peptides and bioregulators, leave a comment and let me know your thoughts on that, and send this to a friend who needs to hear it. And also remember, again, this episode will probably get shadow banned, and others where I'm going to hit on these things more in the future. And if you're not subscribed, it will not pop up in your feed. And so, hey, make sure to subscribe. By the way, it's also the number one thing you can do to support the show. It allows me to bring on more and more high profile guests here, like we are continuing continuing to do here in the future. And this is how I was able to bring on everyone from like Carrie Underwood to Tim Tebow to really well-known, medical physicians. Marty Makery. I mean, he was been on the show. He's the head of the head of the FDA there as well. So I'm hoping next year, I'm believing we're going to have Gary Brecka on again, Dr. Mark Hyman, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So we've got some really killer guests coming up. I'm excited for you to hear it first here on the show, the Dr. Josh Ack Show. I want to say, hey, thanks so much for diving deep with me today. Remember, each week we explore how to grow in body, mind, and spirit and take your health and your life to the next level. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share this podcast. Again, you know how many people don't know or have never even heard of bioregulators or peptides? There's so many people, and it could be a form of medicine that could completely transform our functional medicine and natural medicine landscape and help save a lot of lives and help a lot of people age well and live without drugs and surgery. So really excited about that. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode.